The Anbernic RG557 is the sequel to the awesome RG556. In a year where Anbernic have slowed down their handheld production, the RG557 comes as a really exciting release, taking the amazing ergonomics and OLED screen of the RG556 and boosting the power to give even more power to GameCube and PS2 emulation. However, does the RG557 compete with the likes of the Retro Pocket 5, or does the 557 just miss the mark? I've been using the Anbernic RG557 for the past week to answer these questions, and this is what happened. When I first heard of the RG557, I was absolutely stoked. I really loved the RG556, but wished it had a bit more power. The 557 with the same awesome controller style design and beautiful screen in theory does exactly that, so I couldn't wait to get my hands on one. This time around the RG557 comes in an all white or transparent black option. My transparent blue RG556 looks great, but I don't really like the feel of the transparent plastic. So I opted for the all-white RG557, which has a matte finish to it, and I absolutely love it. Opening the box and the RG557 looks stunning. It kind of reminds me of what I imagine a new PlayStation handheld would look like if they went for a more toned down version of the PS Portal. The ergonomics of the 557, just like the 556, are stunning, and probably the most comfortable retro handheld experience to date. The handheld just fits perfectly in your hands, just like a home console controller, and all the buttons are in perfect to reach places. The analog stick and triggers all feel excellent to use as well. It does look like this year that Anbernic have decided to keep the analog sticks a bit more low profile as opposed to the really tall sticks they used in 2024. And I'm pleased to say that they've increased portability while still maintaining great range of motion. The RG557 came loaded with Acer SX2 for PS2 and Dolphin MMJR2 for GameCube as usual, but also Vita 3K. You all know how much I love my PS Vita, but I've never tried Vita emulation before. Seeing the Vita 3K on the RG556, which has an OLED screen, really got me excited. But we'll get onto that later in the week. Every year in June, we always go to the American Speed Fest at Brands Hatch to watch the Euro NASCAR, and I always get a big urge to play racing games the weeks before and after the event. This week was the week leading up to the Speed Fest event, so I loaded up a bunch of PS2 and GameCube racing games, including Automodelista, Gran Turismo 4, Toka Race Driver 3, Test Drive Unlimited, NASCAR Chase the Cup, and Dirt to Daytona. The RG556 previously struggled quite a bit with Toka Race Driver and NASCAR 08. The RG557, however, is absolutely brilliant and plays these with no issues. As a quick side note, the RG557 is also the first time I've come across Anbernic AI. I must admit, I wasn't really sure what this was all about. I tried loading it up but couldn't figure it out, so it seemed like it was more of a gimmick than anything else. Since doing the challenge, I've looked into it a bit more, and apparently this enhancement transforms the way gamers connect, learn and create through AI-powered tools that blend technology with imagination. I mean, that's just the blurb from the official Anbernic site. And what on earth all of this really has to do with retro gaming, I don't really know. And to be honest, it just kind of supports my idea that it is a bit of a gimmick, but we'll see if it comes to anything in the future. But carrying on, at the start of the week, I'd focus mostly on playing Toka Race Driver 3. The Toka series is one of my favorite racing series around. I love the idea of following the story of a race driver, and it is one of the few race series that lets you race around Brands Hatch, one of the UK's best racing circuits. Toka Race Driver 3 performed brilliantly on the RG557, and I was able to get through a decent amount of the early stages of the game. Around the midweek point, I decided to give Automodelista a go, a game series I've wanted to jump into for ages thanks to its amazing looking graphics and awesome car selection. Automodelista is a fantastically fun game, and one that feels like you're driving in an awesome anime. The gameplay is definitely more arcadey though, and I was craving something a bit more sim-based, so I jumped onto Gran Turismo 4. Gran Turismo 4 is one of those racing games that you can really get stuck into and burn away a lot of time. It's one of my favourites in the series, and playing it on the RG557 was an absolute joy. It was the perfect filler up until the American Speed Fest weekend, which also happened to be the same weekend I picked up the Nintendo Switch 2. As I alluded to earlier, I did also try some Vita emulation on the RG557, but I have to admit I was completely unsuccessful. I'm sure Vita 3K is a great emulator, but it is just not quite as simple as finding a ROM, loading it up and jumping straight into it. You have to go through processes of installing the games, and I just wasn't able to find anything that really worked. I'm sure it's quite doable, and eventually I will get around to sorting it out, but for this week-long challenge, it wasn't something that was as easy to just jump into and play like the PS2 and GameCube were. Still, it's nice to see that the 557 does have Vita emulation capabilities, and I will be interested to see how well it can perform considering it has the OLED screen. Now, although technically the RG557 challenge finished at the end of this week, I did actually take it with me to Brands Hatch alongside the Nintendo Switch 2. I thought having the Nintendo Switch 2 with me would take all my gaming focus, and took the RG557 with me just in case. But things didn't really turn out that way. If you want to find out more about what actually happened, then tune into the next episode. But until then, if you want to get your hands on an RG557, then check out the links in the description below.